Welcome in to another Key David podcast. That was a little excitable. I'm trying to change it up so you don't hear the same thing out of me every single time. But thank you for tuning in. I'm joined by David the Lion Douglas and Trevor Keys, and we have Leiland. And Leiland, I don't see your last name. What's your last name, Leiland?
It's Tanner, Tanner.
Leiland Tanner, who some of you may know him. He's kind of just coming onto the scene with his Latter-day Saint music, which I think is super cool. And he's making primary songs cool again. And so I'm really excited to dive into some of his music, but I also want people to understand who Leiland Tanner is. So Leiland, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm excited. Again, anytime I can talk about my passions, mainly music and the gospel, and be unfettered about it, I'm very excited. So thank you for the invitation and the interest. But I'm just a regular Latter-day Saint. I've been born in the covenant. Again, my last name's Tanner, so I have family heritage in the church that goes back to Joseph Smith days with John Tanner and the Kirtland Temple. That's my family. So grew up in the church, but came from the generation where my parents were kind of the baby boomers that fell asleep to a lot of stuff, and we got away with a lot of things. I was born in 85, so I'm the generation that kind of saw the transition from the internet, from phones and normal life and playing outside to social media and being perpetually online. So have a unique perspective on that coming up. And I hit puberty and grew up in high school, hit high school right as Eminem and, rap music in the popular culture was really becoming ambivalent, just prevalent everywhere. Now, a little background, my parents are kind of classically trained artists and musicians. So my mom was a watercolor painter who did commission work for the Arizona Game and Fish Department here in the Southwest, was painting wildlife for brochures and things like that. And so she was very artistic. She's also into theater. And so I grew up doing plays in the house or theater productions at church with my mom, acting, doing voices. So just very, very creative family to begin with my mom. And my dad is a musician by trade, and so he plays a lot of music, played out. Electric guitar is kind of his main instrument, and so, but he plays horns, he plays everything. So we grew up in a very musical house, but rap music was not allowed. Rap and country music were kind of verboten in our house.
So of course that's what you were drawn to.
No, actually I wasn't, but I ended up into it. So that's kind of the funny story of it, is that I grew up and went to high school and hated rap music. And it was all around me. Like I couldn't get away from the rap music. I grew up in Central Phoenix.
You were in the time Dr. Dre, Eminem, like Gangster's Paradise, right?
Yeah,
everything.
Isn't that your era?
So I learned to love it. I learned those lyrics, but again, because of how I was brought up, it wasn't something that I thought was like talent. It wasn't something that I aspired to be like or I thought was cool. Until I started to kind of assimilate into a friend group into my high school years. Then I started to kind of open up and say like, okay, these guys want to listen to this, what is this about? But like, you can see on my door here, I'd be surprised if any of you could recognize this. Is a guitar player. He's an 80s hair band, neoclassical guitarist called Yngwie Malmsteen. So he's kind of the guy I grew up listening to, who plays classical music on electric guitar. Like that's the music I was brought up to love.
Amazing.
Like Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden were some of the first songs I learned on a guitar to play. So like rap music was not on my register. It was not something that I was interested in at all until I started to I wanted to be friends with other kids in high school. I didn't want to be the loner loser. And so I had
what instruments do you play? What instruments can you play?
Well, I started on the clarinet as a fifth grader. Played that through, realized that I needed to get a manly instrument when I went into, older years. So seventh grade, I picked up the alto saxophone and got really into jazz music. And so I would play I went to a middle school that had a really good jazz program. And that actually is why I went to the high school I went to, because the high school had a jazz program. And I made their jazz A team as a freshman playing alto saxophone. And so I excelled at improvisation. So this is why jazz was perfect for me. When I don't know if you've ever been to a jazz concert or wherever, where you have a jazz song, and then usually you'll have soloists throughout the song just get up and kind of wail within the register, within the key, and improvise to make a solo. And I just naturally excelled at that. So I went into high school as like a band nerd. I played a lot of sports. I did baseball. I played baseball my whole life and things like that. So like I wasn't completely nerdy, but I wanted to join more of the cool kids than I wanted to like continue in my musical talents. So sophomore year, when the school they forced me to not just play jazz band, but I had to be in marching band as well. And for me, that wasn't cool. Like, I did not want to play marching band. I played freshman football. I was playing, which sport was it in sophomore that I was making the excuse that I didn't want to be in marching band for? I can't remember, but I told him, I was like, I'm not going to be in marching band. Like, I made jazz A as a freshman. I feel like I'm an asset to the jazz band. Why can't I just be in jazz? Yeah. There was a senior saxophone player that they let do that. He was a senior and he was like a professional tenor sax player and played gigs out on the weekends and stuff. And they let him do jazz and not marching band. So I was like, what is this? Like, I made jazz as a freshman. Why are you treating him differently? They kind of gave me the middle finger. And so I gave it back. And I left sophomore year, all my jazz playing, to pick up guitar and kind of follow on my dad's path. So I started taking guitar in high school. But that's when I started to change my music taste as well. I wanted to be friends with all of the other cool Mormon kids, put it that way, or Latter-day Saints that were there. And they were a little more rough around the edges than I was. I was kind of the goody two-shoes, straight A kid until I got into high school and wanted to assimilate. I wanted to be cool and accepted. And this is kind of the downfall. It's kind of a cautionary tale, is why I'm leaning so much into it, is that I didn't used to say bad words. I didn't swear. I didn't do any of that stuff. And going into high school, because there were no other Latter-day Saints for me to like befriend and choose the right with, I kind of fell into a bad crowd of mafioso Mormons, you know, like we were just getting into trouble and it wasn't great. So my tongue would loose a little bit in high school and got into some bad habits and things like that, and started to listen to some rap music, you know, to the chagrin of my parents. It was not a good thing. But really what got me into participating in it myself was they started to do lunch rap battles. The local radio station, Power 92 FM was what they were down here. They would come down with their van and everything, set up the loudspeakers during lunch in high school, and they'd have the rap battles go off, and they were giving out like prizes. It was like free movie passes or I don't know, tickets to things. And so I was just so arrogant at the time as a teenager, trying to be cool for my friend groups and stuff. I was in honors English. Like, I was like, I could get up there and rhyme and to rhythm, because I'm good at jazz and improvising. Like, I could get up there and trash these kids. Like, I could totally, like, all you have to do is go up there and rhyme and make fun of the kid, like, and you win tickets. I was like, I could do that. So my friends challenged me. They didn't think I would. I went and did it. And it was just like a natural ability. It was like stepping from improvising in jazz with the saxophone to doing it lyrically with a message. And I had a gift for it. And I won like 3 weeks in a row that the radio station was coming out. They stopped coming out. But then I was invited to all the parties. Like, I was the cream of the crowd. I was the white kid that got invited to all of the South Mountain parties with the giant 6'5" black guys that were playing football in high school. Like, they wanted me there so I could come rap with them. So it became a cool thing for me in high school, just more as like a gag. It was more like a party trick that I could sit there and freestyle or make up a song about somebody on the fly. And
is this when Eminem's 8 Mile had come out too, with all the rap battles?
Yeah. It was before Eminem's 8 Mile. It was like, as he was coming out big, I think Linkin Park had just made their first album. So it was like before even a lot, like Eminem was still climbing to the top. So everybody told me like, oh, you sound like Eminem. You're just like Eminem. And I got so sick of it that I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I don't rap about the things he raps about. I don't vibe with anything he's talking about thematically. Like, I don't feel his music at all. Like, the electric guitar music that's like off in space and doing jazz. So like, that's me. Like, that's how my spirit is. So like, I harmonize with that way better. And so I was offended when people would be like, you sound like Eminem. And I'm like, I'm not Eminem. Like, I'm not trying to be like Eminem. I'm just using poetry is kind of how I saw it.
It's funny how being white just makes you sound.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I was saying you're still rocking the Eminem hair.
Old because it went white, because I went old. It's not because I'm dying it.
No, Eminem today isn't that. Eminem's got dark hair today, so
yeah, he probably uses hair color. See, I'm all natural, no fake. I use my real name too, so that's not like, that's my rap name. That was another thing, like growing up and getting into this and like starting to put out music. People were like, oh, what's your rap name? You have to have a rap name. And I could never settle on one that I thought was cool enough. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to use my regular name because it doesn't matter. Like, that's how I thought. And it's just stuck with me ever since, is that like, I've just continued to use my name. And I've been writing and recording music since probably 2001. 2001 is when I started recording and putting music up. So it's like, you say I'm new to the scene, and that's flattering. I'm grateful. But it's like, for me, I've already been ignored and I don't care about anybody anymore. And I don't care if they like my music. I'm making it for me. Like, that's kind of how it's been for the last many years. I realized my music was like a talent given to me by God to allow me to use it for happiness, to share it with people, myself, And that's how I've kind of honed it over the many decades of my life now, is that I've used the music to project my own character building upward. Because I inject the music, the things I vibe with, the doctrines of the church, the things that I'm studying, I incorporate that into my lyrics. So that when I re-listen to it, I'm remembering all those times I was studying, all the times I was in the scriptures. So it's like, for me, I'm using the brainwashing that I know Babylon's using against us for my own selfish ascension.
Totally.
Basically. So
Gotcha.
that's what I'm selling it as too to Latter-day Saints. Like I'm so clear in my agenda that I'm trying to subvert you with my music, and that's refreshing to me. Like,
I think there's a secret group of people that really love your music as well, and maybe they just haven't gotten to express, or basically you haven't discovered them yet, because I know people like your music. I only learned about your music because of someone else, and then here's these two guys on this podcast. They're just like jamming with it. And I'm like, hey, I know this
dude,
guy.
I just barely found it. Like, I was with MacGyver. And for those of you who know
That's
MacGyver,
funny.
Greg MacGyver happened to be in the same ward as Leiland. And as I'm listening to it, he's like, is this Leiland? I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm doing a podcast with him. So yeah, I love the rap you're doing. I just found it. I think it's really cool. And that's why we wanted to have you on the podcast is, to have other people check you out. Now, Leiland, did you end up serving a mission as well?
Yeah, actually, a mission was hugely foundational for me. I was making music, and a lot of the music I was making before my mission was kind of like, I can only think of the Spanish word, like a burla. It was like a joke. It was like I was making a parody of the rap music that was out there that was popular. And so, for example, I wrote an entire song called Kill It, Kill It, Grill It. And it's all about me being a backyard hunter and cooking like all kinds of rascals that show up in my backyard. So, and I just made it sound as hard and as mean and as nasty as possible, but about the most ridiculous thing, which was shooting animals in my backyard and being this like a hardcore killer backyard guy, like throwing the chipmunk in the pot and
almost like a redneck rapper or something like that.
But this was like back before even MySpace was popular. So I was pretty groundbreaking. I'll just like brag on myself a little bit there, that like I was already doing the things. I just never got the virality that I think a lot of people that, get that fresh start get. So I was already making kind of comedy parody songs.
Almost reminds me of the Aquabats.
And lo and behold, I went to their concerts out here in Arizona because I think they were from Mesa, some of them. So like I was like, the Aquabats were also an inspiration to me. So I get that. I had such a diverse taste in music because of this upbringing, and then me like finding this hidden talent in rap and stuff, that I was incorporating all kinds of music, whether it was jazz styles or punk stuff. It was my music was like the MMA of rap.
What do you think of Linkin Park? Like, where does Linkin Park sit with you?
They were definitely formative for me during that same time as I'm like coming into my own as an artist. Linkin Park was something that we were bumping in high school, out to lunch in everybody's systems that they had in their cars with their 212s in the back, bumping In the End or whatever it might be. Like Linkin Park was definitely
when you read their lyrics are powerful. I don't think people understand how powerful Linkin Park's lyrics are. Super powerful lyrics. So how important are lyrics for you as you're putting stuff together, as you're looking at the words? Is that important as you make music?
Absolutely. I think it's hypercritical, and it's sad to me that most people, they listen lyrically blind to a lot of music. And I fell victim to that as well growing up, where you like a song so much, you know all the words to it, but you're never really putting the words together and seeing the message that's being presented. Like, I know a lot of us as adults go back and listen to songs that we remember dancing to as youth, and we're like, wow, how inappropriate is that? Like, back that, what up? Like, or you hear the lyrics, and then as an adult, you start to mature and see the real message behind them, and it's sickening. I was realizing that at a very early age. I was realizing the messaging behind all this music was like intentionally inverted to the gospel message I was getting at church or from everybody else. I knew, and it was a subversion.
Where did you serve your mission?
So yes, I didn't get to that, but like I was making a bunch of silly rap, and then I decided to kind of leave everything. I had a beautiful girlfriend. I had an awesome car with stereo system. I had a great job at Discount Tire, and I decided, I definitely need to go on a mission. I served in southern Mexico. I got called to the Mexico Tuxtla Gutierrez mission. So it's right there on the border of Guatemala, the most southern mission that you can.
Yeah, that's a great accent. You could speak it really well.
I loved
Muy
going there.
bien.
Again, like I said, the theater aspect for my mom really helped me with my missionary work, because I was able to perform. I was able to be a better teacher because I'm an active listener. I can do voices. I can imitate really well. So as I was there, I was actively writing notebooks. Like every new word I could hear, I was learning it and pronouncing it over and over again. I would have people repeat words so that I could imitate the accent. And then people they would ask me, like, if I was native, they would ask me where I was from in Mexico. They wouldn't assume that I was always gringo just because of the way that I could speak. So like that was a very powerful tool that, again, my upbringing in this creative hotbed with my family kind of helped me out with in the mission, that I utilized every single tool I had. My music, I brought rap with me and would rap to people on the streets. Like I loved my mission because of that. Yeah, in Spanish, in English, in whatever it was, just to get people's attention. And then you come in with the spiritual message. So like, it's a wonderful icebreaker, groundbreaker.
Do you have any examples that you could throw at us, like right here live?
Dude, you're a legend. Come on.
Probably not. No, probably not. And it might sound like a cop out to a lot of people, like, oh, why won't the rapper rap online? But I'm not like a monkey that claps for you when you clap. Like to me, it really is about poetry. Although on the mission you could do it where you could just on the spot. It's more like I don't want to abuse the spirit of it. Is all. But the way I treat it. The way I treat it, even now in my normal life, like a lot of people will request a song to make. Like, will you make a song about this type of thing? But me as an artist, like, I don't force it. Like, if you're asking me to force something, it might take me a really long time to actually complete this task. Because for me, I am very intuitive with how I record, with how I write, with how I produce everything that I'm producing, whether it's music or writing content or art or whatever it is. Like, I'm very intuitive. So it's not that I'm copping out to say, like, I don't want to rap on stream with you or whatever, or rap battle, or that I wouldn't ever do it because I cut my teeth doing that. It's more like I have a respect for the poetry that I do make. I don't want somebody to hear like a crappy rap on this stream here and then be like, oh, this guy's so sucky. I don't want to do anything like that. So it's more that. I hope you respect that.
Totally.
David, with his African-American heritage, is a natural born rapper. And so, David, if you will indulge us right now.
I'm also a true artist, Trevor.
There you go.
I don't want to disrespect the art of rap. Okay, so
it's smart. Nice move, David.
Well move, David.
Nice move. Okay, so you come home from your mission, and music's a part of who you are, and that seems to be like, big part of your family. And you said you've been making music for quite a while. Talk to me about that journey of making music. And, it's been, 20 years probably since you've been home from a mission or so. Yep. Talk to me about kind of your journey in making music.
So coming back from the mission, it was difficult because you have so many ideas on the mission where you're like, this is how I'm going to plot out my life. Like, I'm going to do these steps and become this successful. And when I was on my mission, music wasn't a part of it. It was like I was trying to mature and outgrow this obvious talent that I had and dismiss it. Like, to me, I thought that was maturing, was to get rid of this talent, that I couldn't be an adult and come back and be like a member of society, get married and like get callings in the church if I was this rapper guy. And so like in my mind, I was sabotaging my future progress when I came home, because I came home and I was all about chasing money. Like, I wanted to be a lawyer. So I started to do everything to get into law school. I worked at a law firm, and I was true to myself in that, like I am with everything I do. Like, I jump in and I'm true to myself. And when I realized that being a lawyer was not what was my heart wanted, it was like, it's too much studying, too much late nights away from the family, too much writing and reading, too much legal crap, too much conspiracy behind the scenes. Like, I saw it all. So it's like, you know what? That's not the life that I want. And I still haven't figured it out. So like, this is an ongoing journey here, 20 years after the mission. I fell into sales after abandoning my law school attempt. And I've kind of been like floundering through sales ever since. And
what kind of sales?
I've done everything from, I was a water treatment and boiler maintenance technician salesman for a company out of California. So I covered all of Arizona, like multi-housing facilities, apartment complexes, restaurants. I would go to them and solicit service for boiler service and things like that. I've sold AFLAC supplemental insurance. I've sold life insurance. I've sold, what was the most recent? I was selling some software for construction companies recently. I just hate sales, to be honest. It feels like you're selling your soul. You're talking people into buying things they probably don't need, but like it's just like an abuse of talents that I know I have to interact and communicate with people. I think if I was in the right situation, selling the right thing, I'd be happy. But I haven't quite found that as an adult, and so I have a sour relationship with my professional life. So that's an issue. Like if you're talking about how has my life been post mission, it's not been flowers and all success and everything. I've struggled a lot, and I still am. So it's just, for me, the music is more a divine mission. It's more about building my character. It's more about me and sharing what God has given me as a talent. And I realize it's my lifeline for happiness. When I'm not making music, when I'm not doing these creative things that I know I'm just geared to do, I fall into deep depression. I fall into anxiety. I fall into suicidal ideation. So it's like, for me, I went through a period after my mission where I tried to ignore the music, where I tried to ignore making fun music, stuff that would excite me, stuff that was unique and mine. And I fell stagnant in my gospel progression. I fell stagnant in my progress on the eternal path, on the covenant path. And so when I was at my lowest during that as an adult, it was when I had to dig deep and say, like, what is my source of happiness? Of course, it's Christ. I want it to be Christ. I want it to be the gospel. And as soon as I would kind of move my mind and spirit and heart to that thought, it was always affirmed to me. I was compelled to go back to my music, that I had to exercise these talents that I was kind of just ignoring, that I was wrapping in dark curtains. For what reason? It was because I was worried that somebody might judge me and be like, oh, he's weird. He does raps, or he's like, he's a white guy. He shouldn't be doing that. Or he's a Latter-day Saint and we don't do rap music. Like, I get that all the time. I have people that'll call me satanic just because of how my profile looks on Twitter. Like, it's all dark and they're like, oh, why are you so dark, Leiland? Yeah. It's like, how can I be an artist then amongst Latter-day Saints if I don't get that kind of, like, I don't get that leeway with people. It's like, you have to be the cookie cutter, what it looks like. Otherwise, they won't even entertain that you're doing something that might be beneficial or good. So that's kind of like what stops me.
I think, Leiland, that we've already unanimously decided that we want to just feature all of your music in our videos. and at least I'm seeing, like, the Key of David in the Field pod, the episodes and whatnot. I think we've all decided that we'd love to have your music part of our show very frequently.
Yeah, dude, I love what you're doing. I love your vibe. So just keep being you. But as I look at you, are you familiar with the freestyle rapper Harry Mack?
Yeah, recent YouTube guy who goes around and just freestyles. Yeah, I appreciate and love his talent. I think that's an appropriate use of freestyle. I mean, cut out the bad words and stuff. Like, that's how I work. But, like, I love Harry Mack, and that's the kind of freestyle that
you kind of look like him. If I had to say, I don't think you look like Eminem. I think, is your hair gray? It's not dyed. It's gray, right?
Yeah, that's stress. That's what that is.
Maybe maybe he looks
I think it looks cool.
Yeah, no, I've never dyed my hair, not once in my life. So this is all natural. And I started to go gray at 30.
Harry Mack
I'm
has the same kind of look. If you haven't looked up Harry Mack, go look up Harry Mack. He's got some, like, what his talent is really cool. So now that, what are you doing now? Are you still in sales, or have you just said, hey, I'm going to just do music, or is music just kind of this hobby that you'd like to turn into something?
That's the latter. I wish that my music could be something I could support my family with. I've never made any money with my music, like zero. Like, all the residuals, even from SoundCloud or anything, like, would equal negative money in my investment into this. So it's definitely a hobby and a passion of love. It's not something that I used to dream about being famous. I used to dream that, like, oh, all the Latter-day Saints are going to hear my music and realize what I'm doing, that I'm putting in good lyrics and actual doctrine into this same, booty bumping music that everybody's so addicted to. It's like, they didn't, though. That's not what happens. It has to be this explanatory thing where I have to explain explicitly what I'm doing as an artist, which turns me off as an artist. It's like, if I have to sit there and explain what I'm doing and all of my lyrics and what they mean and stuff, it defeats the purpose of, like, being an artist and expressing yourself without, having to explain yourself, I guess. It's kind of how I felt. So I'm at this conflict with myself in producing what I produce, that I don't have any expectations that I will ever turn this into something that could, support my family or anything like that. But I'm going to continue doing it because I know what the results are for me personally, and that there are people that it has changed, that it has helped, that it has uplifted, has edified. And so it's like, that's good fruit, regardless of the size of it or how fast it catches fire. I'm just going to keep making what I can make while I'm able to. And like, I have over 140 songs, even more than that with work I've done with Sons of Ephraim, which is another group I'm doing with a couple of the Latter-day Saints over the last couple of years, like, and a whole bunch of features. I'm featured on all kinds of songs. I have more discography than most of your famous artists that you would name right now. Like, I have that many songs out and published, but nobody cares. Nobody realizes. And to me, it's not like something I brag about, but here I am, like, telling you that, like, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's just because I know it brings me happiness. So if it could turn into money or something that's great and support my family with, great. But the Lord is honing me and, like, edging me right now, allowing me to use all the free time that I do have to put it into these things. So I'm not wasting time and falling into bad habits and traps that I'm probably, susceptible to. So I see it as a mercy from God, essentially, that I'm not famous, and he just wants me to keep cooking.
Shane, let's bump one of these. Let's
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want to pull one up, and I want to just kind of review it with you, Leiland. What were you thinking? What do the lyrics mean? But also kind of showcase it. Is there a particular song that you're like on your SoundCloud that you're like, yeah, this one, everybody should know the lyrics, everybody should be bumping this? Do you have one or two or three that we could review with you?
Yeah, one that comes to mind immediately is Moses. I can pull it up, or I have it if you want me to share my tab.
I want to hear Moses. I want to hear the Follow the Prophet one because it's funny and it's cool. And then there's a trap one. I can't remember what the name of that one is. That was pretty good. It's got the Tetragrammatron logo. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What's that called?
Let me play Moses first, and then we'll figure it out. Because a lot of my music has the Tetragrammaton or the Metatron's cube and things like that on it. So, but let me play Moses.
Let's go.
So, I hope that works and it shares the audio. So this is Moses. You want me to preface it, or do you want to listen and then go over it?
Yeah,
like, how would you guys
preface it?
Well, let's get it. Let's get a precursor of kind of how it came to be. Let's listen to it and let's discuss it.
So this song, I sat down with the intention to write about transfiguration, because that was something that I was studying in depth in a lot of my studies. And so I wanted to put myself in the position of Moses at the burning bush. What would that experience have looked like? What would that have felt like? What would that have been like? So that's how the song started. And usually I'll start with one single idea, and then it evolves. And then I just pray and say, Lord, bless me with the gift of inspiration, with the gift of knowledge, with the gift of rapping, with the gift of poetry, with the gift of understanding, with the gift of conveying a message that you would have conveyed. Like, I ask for these gifts specifically, like, as I'm writing, and then it evolves. So this one started with a message about the transfiguration of Moses at the burning bush. And then the next verse is about essentially Christ and his transfiguration through the atonement. And then the third verse is the transfiguration of Joseph Smith. And so for me, this is a very deep doctrine glimpse or snapshot of, like, the three messiahs is the way that I see it, where you have Moses as the original deliverer of Israel. Then you have the Messiah in the middle of the song being the deliverer of all Zion. But then you have Moshiach Joseph Smith, or Messiah Joseph Smith, who comes as such an important restorer and deliverer of Israel in the latter days, setting up the stone of Zion. So, like, for me, the three verses track on this big macro idea that I'm always involved in, my cosmic perspective of stuff. But individually, the lyrics are just like, if you've studied Transfiguration, you'll respect what I've done here. And so that's kind of how I want to lead into it.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, we'll listen to it, and then we'll go over the lyrics.
Click the closed caption button so we can see lyrics at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's some of them because of how quick I speak, but I can pull up the lyrics on the screen afterward and go through them. I think it's worth it for this one. So here we go.
Now is the time, now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people know. Now is the time, now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people go. I am a stranger to my own kind. I tried to run, but I felt the mountain calling for me. So up to I went to find. push off with the shoes down, grounded soundly. Holy ground found round about now surrounds me, flowing in the fiery fountain of the holy mountain. Change of the countenance, burned of the heart, out of the doubtfulness, iron in the fire like an ember. I'm illuminated higher in the spire with the calling while I'm caught up. Tell them, Israel, now is the time, come home to me. Now is the call, please. Time to gather the tribes and let my people know. Now is the time, now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people go. I am a stranger to my own kind. To them I preached, but I felt the Father calling for me. So in the garden pressed the wine, Gethsemane, in atoning fire alone made holy. Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God. Wonderful Counselor, the Prince of Peace. Come Israel. Now is the time, come home to me. Now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people know. Now is the time, now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people go. I am a stranger to my own kind. I heard them preach, but I didn't know which church was for me. So to the grove I went to find the source of light in the flaming fire of man made holy. Calling Moshiach Joseph Smith, 1820 on the money on the 6th April. Come the general conference, smoking pillar like burning phosphorus. Like glass, not a burn, not a part. Changing of the countenance and turning of the heart. Iron in the fire like an ember, we're illuminating higher with the calling to inspire fallen Israel. Now is the time, come home to me. Now is the call, time to gather the tribes and let my people know. Now is the time, now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people go.
So sick.
You got to vibe with the outro music. I just love how it drops off right there at the end, and you're still looking into the sacred grove. So
Yeah, that's so sick.
that was a
Dude,
passion.
that's so sick. That was the first one that I heard, and I love it. It kind of reminds me. Are you familiar with the artist Mattis Yahoo?
Yeah, the Jewish, right? The Jewish.
Yeah, he's
performer?
like a Hasidic Jew that does kind of reggae rapish kind of music, but he's also rapping about his religion, his Jewish tradition in a lot of ways. And when I heard that, I'm like, man, that vibe sounds like Mattis Yahoo. Really cool.
Yeah, in fact,
But let's talk a little bit about the lyrics.
yeah, just along those lines with Mattis Yahoo, I really, when it comes to sounds, tones, themes in terms of like musically, I am really drawn, like my soul is drawn to those Hebrew vibes, to those like Middle Eastern tones, to Arabic type rhythms.
That's
I
remarkable.
really am drawn to that. So like for me,
Yep.
it's it fits with the theme. Everything that I write, all of my lyrics are focused on what the prophets are talking about, the gathering of Israel, focused on doctrine, on prophecy, on the restoration. Like they're there. It's just, again, understanding it, having to decipher it. So if I can, let me walk you through the lyrics of that song and just kind of show you what I'm talking about more explicitly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love the imagery as you explained it before, where it's like you got Moses in verse 1, you've got the Savior in verse 2, and then you've got Joseph Smith in verse 3.
Yeah, if you could zoom in all the way, that'd be super rad.
That's good. Oh yeah, I can see it good.
Okay, so the chorus goes like this. It's now is the time, now is the call. Time to gather the tribes and let my people know. So now is the time, now is the call, time to gather the tribes, but let my people go. So you have this play on words of Moses and his whole calling, but also I am mixing it entirely with the message today of the restoration and the gathering of Israel being the most important work on the earth. Like, how are we participating? For me, it's putting out music about it, about educating those of the blood of Israel, you know, that the restoration is here. So like, and putting out music that they can use and actually enjoy playing in the car for people. And that doesn't have to be Motab. That doesn't have to be all instrumental. That doesn't have to be something like that. You can shake the trunk or shake the house or shake the walls and get excited and have your body move, but for good reasons, for the gathering. You know what I mean? I imagine hordes of Israelites marching to these beats. Like when I'm writing my raps, I think of the Exodus all the time and how it must have been a perilous advent. How it must have been something where you were relying entirely on this prophet figure and everything's unknown, but you're walking to the beat of the drum. You're like that's how I imagine when I'm writing these things. It's like I put myself in this context, this artistic context. So that's the chorus that repeats throughout this about the gathering of Israel. Now, a refrain that repeats on every verse for both Moses, Christ, and Joseph Smith is this first one that I personally like am living as this outcast rapper oxymoron. And I say oxymoron where it's like I'm a contradiction. You shouldn't have a Mormon rapper guy like this or a Latter-day Saint rapper that does this kind of music, this trap music, that kind of stuff. So I'm a walking oxymoron, and I feel a lot of times like a stranger even to my own kind. Like even amongst Latter-day Saints to the Christian world, we're a small minority. And then here I come with
on that one.
And here I come with this esoteric take on things. Yeah. And so I feel the strangeness of this doctrine because Moses feels that. Christ feels that. When he's going to his own people and they reject him. Like, this is good. This is a good feeling that you should soak in and contextualize or synthesize to your gospel understanding. So that's how it starts.
I want to coin the phrase oxymormon.
There you go. I am an oxymormon. Exceedingly white. Put me in the laundry. Okay, so I am a stranger to my own kind. I tried to run, but I felt the mountain calling for me. And again, mountain here obviously is Mount Sinai or the mount that the Mount Horeb or whatever it might be, but also the temple. It's also the throne of God. It's like there's so many things that stack onto the symbol of the mountain. When you understand how I talk, what I'm writing about, it all starts to like click into place, and you'll see that I'm actually very repetitive. Like everything I'm talking about is the gospel. That's it,
bro.
So it's like
Leiland. I just so you know, I love your. Soon as we started talking about your lyrics, it's like a switch. It's like your intensity, your energy, your focus, like you're so passionate about this. And that's why I love it. And we've got to figure out a way to have you make money so you can do this full time, not stress about it. So
I wish that's the dream, honestly. But until then, I'm just going to keep grinding.
Yeah.
I'm just ignoring that you said that. That's how I operate. So it's like, so I felt the mountain calling for me. This is Moses, that he feels that the call. So he says, so I went up to Ra to find. Now, this might seem strange to us as Latter-day Saints. Like, what am I throwing an Egyptian god Ra in there for? But I'm
not really
putting myself.
It is Ra El is Isis.
Yeah.
Ra, God Ra, El, God El is Ra El.
So I have a lot of writings separate to my lyrics that if you're interested, I go into the cosmic layer of the gospel that I see is evident.
I'm totally interested.
All scriptures.
Totally.
But these are the little drops that I put in my lyrics that people are like, why are you throwing that? And so I've decided to write this whole other expose, this series of essays I call the Cosmism Manifesto, a play on the Communist Manifesto. But it's to open the eyes, to say, expand your vision to what we already have in the scriptures, that there's this cosmic layer that everybody just ignores. And in fact, all the scriptures that everybody says are boring, like the Isaiah chapters, like all the Old Testament, like all the weird things.
Trevor's. I just saw Trevor go unmute. So now you got his attention. You just went to a place that Trevor loves.
Well, welcome to my music. Welcome to my lyrics. I hope you actually engage with them because that's what these are. This is a cosmic layer of the gospel that I'm interceding and like subverting the mind of Latter-day Saints with. That's my whole intention, and I'm open about it. And it's like I'm writing this whole other series so that there's no funny business about like, what is this guy doing? What are his intentions? Like here's exactly how I got to where I got to, and here's all the sources that I've included in my other writings that like explain my lyrics. So take me as an artist that is putting out two things creatively right now. I'm continuing to make music with these lyrics that are incorporating what I'm studying individually, and also like what I feel like people would resonate with and want to hear like in that kind of rhythm. And so that's what I'm making on one hand. On the other hand, I am also like spoon feeding you exactly what my lyrics mean with an exhaustive, I mean, they are hours long. I have over 45 hours of me just talking like this about my doctrine, the lyrics, the doctrine, and the scriptures, like going line by line through the scriptures and applying this cosmic layer. So if you're interested, it takes work. It takes effort. It's not something that you're going to watch a few videos and then say that you've got me debunked or figured out. Like my confidence in what I've studied, like nobody's going to touch it unless you come at me actually understanding my arguments and like showing that you've considered what I'm actually putting out there, because I put in considerable effort over the years to put this all together. So it's
and
like
in your video, like the long form videos, you call this your cosmology. Is that right? I think I heard you say that.
I use the word coined by Hugh Nibley. He calls it cosmism,
Cosmic.
which is essentially like a restored version of cosmology. So like Joseph Smith restored all kinds of things, and everybody will admit in the church that he restored the temple. But what people don't put two and two together is that a restoration of the temple implies a restoration of cosmology, because the temple is cosmology. That's all it is. It's all about cosmology when you get into it. Yes, the covenants, those are important, and that's what we focus on because that's the actionable ordinance. But the symbolism, the messaging, the whole description, the theatrics of it, the play, the pageantry, all of that is ancient cosmology being restored. And so my lyrics talk about that. My essays, that's all it's about. It's called the Cosmism Manifesto, where I'm saying, I'm going to treat you like you've already read the scriptures like I have. And now we're going to look at the scriptures again with this cosmic layer. So it's not for milk and honey members. It's not for somebody who's new to the gospel. This is meat and mystery. And so like, that's what I've incorporated in these. And it's hard to...
and mystery. Love it.
It's hard to just come out and say that though, without again, immediately having shade thrown at you by all kinds of people, know-it-alls as well coming out of the corners. But I'll just say this, like, I've only received positive responses from my long-form essays, and I have never once received a refutation from an academic or anybody else about the things that I'm saying. So it's like, I invite it. That's why I'm putting it out there, because I think those academics right now who are focused on holy cultural issues of the day are completely off track and looking beyond the mark, when we haven't even respected and understood everything Joseph Smith restored with the temple. That's where I'm at, where I'm like, you guys are the ones looking beyond the mark, and they want to call me that, when I'm like, no, this has all bolstered my testimony of Joseph Smith and the restoration beyond anything those academics could tell me. So like, that's my shtick.
Do you tie any Native American themes into your music? I haven't, that hasn't stood out to me yet. That's why I'm wondering.
Absolutely. All ancient mythologies, they are the one story, is the way this cosmism perspective that I feel Joseph Smith has offered us. It will integrate and synthesize every ancient culture, Native American tradition or oral tradition. They're explained when you understand the temple as it really is. Now, when I say that, there are lots of implications to this. So when we talk about cosmology, I talk about when Joseph Smith restored doctrine, we cannot accept the cosmology that the world offers us anymore because of what Joseph Smith has said. He has given distinct keys when it comes to cosmology that we cannot accept a Big Bang, dark everything theory that the world wants to throw on us. And there are so many good intentioned members of the church who want to fit that square peg into the round hole of the gospel and make it work. Like, no, it does work. This is how it works. We can believe in these things. I can believe in evolution as taught by Darwin and the gospel when they're not compatible. There is one doctrine of the devil and a dispensation of deceit that's rising alongside with the restoration of the fullness of the gospel and the dispensation of the fullness of times. You have parallel, a floating building, the city that
love
Lehi
how you
and
said
Nephi all
that
saw,
dispensation
and
of
the tree of
deceit.
life. Yeah,
Totally.
And that's not my frame. There are early apostles and prophets that I'm stealing that from. They called it that. And they specifically named out guys like Charles Darwin, like Karl Marx, all these people that modern day Latter-day Saints and academics who think they're affluent and very knowledgeable, they get caught falling for these deceitful flaxen cords of the devil, these doctrines of the devil, and that's what they are. So for me, a focus like the current prophet has told us to focus on your foundations, focus on the temple, focus on thinking celestially. This is all similar language to me. It's like milk and honey introduction language to saying, hey, open your mind to a cosmic view, to a cosmic perspective. And that's what I've been saying this whole time with my music, with everything, that like, this is the testimony that solved my stagnation as an adult. Remember I told you as an adult, I wasn't progressing like I wanted to with the gospel. Well, when I found this layer of the gospel that enhanced everything else that was a mystery, all of a sudden I can't get enough of it. And it's been like a decade or more of continuing to fly. And I don't see an end in sight. And that's glorious. That's amazing. That means I'll never run out of excitement like this that will feed my creative output. Never. And I could live to be 1,000 years old and still not tap this, like all of it. That's what I found. So like people who come to me like, nah, you're looking beyond the mark. This is too much. You're making it too complicated. I'm just like, it's not for you. It's not for you. It's not for childish minds who live in ignorance, who live in innocence and want to stay that. I have a line. I have a line in one of my songs where I say, this isn't meant for the childish mind, ignorant innocence, and trapped in time. This is meant for the lightning kind, right? Like this is meant for somebody who wants the input, who wants that communication, who wants the direct revelation. And I feel like the current president of the church, the prophet, President Nelson, and all of the apostles are initiating the whole church into this higher, holier way of looking at things. So it's like, I'm not the one that's looking beyond the mark. I can sense that they're following the same steps that I have, but taking the whole congregation or general assembly of the church to the mountain. Just like Moses invited, and how many actually showed up and went with him? There were only 70 of the elders out of all the host of Israel. The rest of them were terrified to go up to the mountain for themselves. I see that playing out 100% today with what's going on with the current leadership of the church and the signs of the times culminating. That people are afraid to acknowledge that we are living in those prophesied times.
Leland,
one thing
freaking love your energy, dude.
I love that. And I would say that the majority of the people that are finding our channel, somehow the YouTube algorithm knows that they're the seekers, right? They are the ones that are looking for this further light knowledge. They're looking for more of this meat. They're looking for something to feed their soul. And, you know, I've had similar experiences where, you know, for the last 20 years, I'm finding meat, and then I run to the end of it, and I'm kind of like on a dry spell for a little bit, you know, and I'm like, I'm just searching here. I'm looking for something else, and eventually I'll find something and grab it. And I love hearing that your cosmic manifesto, or what did you call it?
The Cosmism Manifesto.
That is the funniest play on mockery. I love that, dude. It's so deep because I got into that and read it quite a bit. I just the people that are hearing this channel, they're gonna love your music, and this is like the perfect outlet for it. Let's listen to the.
Hold on. I want to finish going through those lyrics. Like, we didn't even get through. Like the second verse before we went sidetrack here. So let's try to not interrupt him and go through this, because I feel like there's some really deep stuff in this, and then I want to jump to another song, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll pick up right where I went off. So Moses, I depict him as saying, so I went up to Ra to find the source of light. Because to me, in my cosmic perspective, all of these incidences of the Exodus, and I don't know how familiar any of you are with Immanuel Velikovsky. Does that name ring a bell for anybody?
Not
how
for
about
me.
like an Anthony Larson? He's a member of the church who wrote about some of these things. If not, that's okay. This is, again, the fringe esoteric stuff. But there are reputable scholars that put forward an entirely different version of planetary history. Our institute manuals actually point to these guys by name. Immanuel Velikovsky is one by name in our Old Testament institute manual that says, hey, look to this guy for alternative planetary history explanations. Like, there are alternative ideas to creation than the billion-year theories that everybody just like dejectedly accepts, right? There are very real catastrophic versions of history that incorporate catastrophe, so that rapid changes to Earth and its state and its mountains and oceans and valleys and all kinds of things, that they can change in an instant rapidly due to planetary interaction.
Are we talking electric universe type?
Yes, 100%. Electric universe, plasma universe. The cosmology I believe Joseph Smith restored points directly to this.
Leiland.
When he's talking in Doctrine and Covenants about light being the motivating and powering factor for the sun, the moon, everything, that is electric universe. That is the universe is electric. And I go through in my writings, in my essays, and I literally go case by case in the scriptures proving that this is the case. So this is where, like, nobody's going to convince me otherwise.
I've wanted to find an LDS electric universe proponent, but I haven't found them out there. Could you do a slideshow, an entire different episode on this? I mean, it would take several episodes.
I have it prepared. We can pull it up right now. Like, I do this. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is
okay. Well, save that.
My music
save that, Leiland. We're gonna do a whole series on that. Let's save that, shelf that, and if you're down to keep doing this, like, we have an audience that I think is gonna really vibe with you. They're gonna vibe with your music, but they're gonna vibe with your cosmology, and they're gonna vibe with kind of the esoteric nature of your thinking. And I want to do a whole series on the electric universe if you're cool to do that.
Yeah, but I would just say, you've got to do it the right way. And this is my, like, stern warning up front. There is no shortcut for this. There's no shortcut for acquiring the mysteries of godliness. They pay a heavy price on your heart, on your soul, on your reputation to those around you, on whatever it might be. So this is something you've got to do the right way. You've got to go line upon line, like brick by brick. There's no other way to do it. So the way I wrote my essays that go through this, like step by step, it's progressive in that you have to start with essay number 1, and start with 2, 3, 4, 5, because each essay is going to build on the last one, concepts, ideas that are drastically different than what you grew up understanding or just accepting as reality. Like, for one, this idea that the Passovers of Exodus, that these were literal passing bodies, planets that were passing over and causing catastrophes and disturbances, not just there in Egypt and the Red Sea, but all around the nations. And scientists like this guy I'm pointing to, Emmanuel Velikovsky, he does the legwork in finding those sources. How during that same time period of the Exodus, in China, in America, in all these other places, there are records of catastrophe happening, and they attribute it to planets. They attribute it to literally planets coming down and doing this to the earth. And in our modern hubris, in our modern arrogance of academia and thinking we're so smart and enlightened, they dismiss the witness and like what these ancients actually saw, that it was planets that were once close to the earth that have separated and moved out. And there are scriptures that support this idea. This goes with prophets and how they have described the fall of the earth as literally falling from Kolob or another star into its current orbit, so that we weren't born here. Yet if you want to accept mainstream cosmology and astronomy, they assume that the earth was born in this system billions of years ago and it's never moved and the planets don't move and none of that stuff happens. Yet all of the ancient witnesses, from Babylon to Persia to Greece to Rome to wherever you go, to Native Americans, the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Mayans, it doesn't matter. In Africa, you can go against the Skinny Pawnees, you can go to anywhere you want to go, and they will point to planets that they used to worship because they were close to the earth. Why have we forgotten that? Why do we ignore that? The Passover of Moses, the Passover of the Exodus, was the Passover of planets. And they were attributed by the Egyptians, by everybody else, to the planets Venus and Mars, that these two planets were like bumping the earth as they all got into their interplanetary orbits after the flood, after our previous system was captured by the sun. I'll go into that in later ones because, again, that's a lot to unpack. And
we're doing a whole series on this. I freaking love it. Okay, let's go back to the lyrics, see if we can get through the...
It matters, though, because this is what I'm talking about. Why do I say Ra? Well, because Ra was the name of Mars, the planet Mars, to the Egyptians. Again, Israel. Isis was Venus. Israel is Isis, Ra, El. El was Saturn. El is Saturn. If you look in ancient Babylonian texts, that's the thing. So you have this Venus, Saturn, Mars connection. And I go all into that. Like, why was the original Sabbath Saturn's day? Right? Why are there Saturnian symbols on the Salt Lake City temple? Did you know that? There are Saturn stones, and they're above the sun. Why? Well, I go into that. Joseph Smith explained it, yet we as members reject it because it's too weird, it's too gross, it's too against the mainstream, and we wouldn't be accepted by everybody else if we start really flaunting this flag and ensign. So this is what I'm saying. Now, another aside, and I promise I'll get back to the lyrics, but understanding this is so important because right now you have the exposure of secret combinations and their symbols and tactics and methods happening in real time. All day, every day, people are starting to expose secret combinations and the occult. As their symbols come to the surface and everybody that is looking to reject evil and uphold good sees their symbols, guess who they're going to throw in that same bucket as being evil? Us. All of us, our temples, because our temples use those symbols correctly, properly, understanding ancient planetary history as a restoration as Joseph Smith presented it, right? And if you don't see that synthesis, that we have a restored version of all these occult symbols that Satan has inverted. For example, the horns on the head, that's not a satanic thing. In fact, that was the symbol for illumination for somebody who was transfigured, who was experiencing the spirit through their body. They would have horns of light and their face would glow. This is exactly what happened to Moses. This is why he's described as having horns in a lot of artwork. And he comes down with what over his face so he doesn't scare Israel? A veil when he comes down for being transfigured. That he had a veil over his face and had to cover it so that they weren't freaked out by his transfigured nature. But all of the classical artists depict Moses with horns because he was receiving revelation and speaking for God. Do you see how Satan...
I've never heard that horn breakdown. I've heard a lot of people talk about the depiction of Moses with horns, but I've never heard the ascension.
In my essays, I go into this, that this is Transfiguration Doctrine 101, that if you're understanding these symbols of horns, it was when the powers of heaven interact with the powers of earth, and these things are manifested to everyone. Because the planets, as they would pass by, looked like a bull or an ox at times, or it would look like a lion, or it would look like other animal figures, or it would look like a man walking with a sword. That's what these planets and the plasma around them and the electricity around them would look like as they got close and interacted. So all of the mythologies describing these things in the skies, or ancient petroglyphs where they're drawing these figures on the stone and it doesn't make sense, it makes 100% total logical conclusion sense, like when you just insert the correct foundation. that we're looking at all of space and astronomy and cosmology inverted. We don't think electricity works out there. Now, as we get telescopes and we start to see things more detailed, they're having to admit that. They're admitting there are magnetic fields out there, and they want to attribute it to anything else but electricity and light. To me, that's a dead ringer hit, again, for what Joseph Smith is saying, that light is what creates. Light is the power that Christ uses to organize matter and to destroy it. So, like, what did Joseph Smith describe Moroni as leaving in his room? Like, he appeared and was floating in the air, Moroni, a resurrected being. And he was light all around his body, exquisitely white. He can't get enough describing how white and bright this guy is, right? And then how does he leave? It says he ascends up through a conduit. That's a portal, my friends. That's an electrical term. A conduit is what we use to hold the electrical wire. You get what I'm saying? What did Nephi do when he stretches out his arms and he does something to his brothers? What does he do to them? He shocks them, my friends. And what do they immediately respond by saying, we know that's the power of God. Electricity. You get what I'm saying? Like, we live with it. We turn it on in our lights. I have it here all in my room, and we take it for granted. But this anciently,
huge questions.
This anciently was something that was revered, and the ancient Egyptians and their pyramids were practicing with static electricity. The Ark of the Covenant was a capacitor of some means, obviously, because of how Uzziah is struck dead just by touching it, how they had to wrap it and carry it and take such care to move it around from place to place. It was a conductor. It had literal power that was influencing whatever was happening cosmically to protect Israel. That's why the Ark was so important and pivotal. And when their wickedness didn't allow for God's protection, the Ark didn't matter because God was just going to overflow them with power, right? But as long as they would maintain a covenant connection with God, he would protect them despite the catastrophes. This is the message of the Old Testament, that there were earth-shattering, heaven-shattering catastrophes, and the people go mad. The elite, the smart, the kings of the world, they go mad and they go into the caves and try to hide, while the prophets are the ones that are like, we told you this was coming. This has happened over and over again. In Isaiah's day, the same thing happens. It's planetary catastrophe. The blast that destroys the army of Sennacherib. Why does the dial turn back in Hezekiah's day and Isaiah's day? He's describing planetary catastrophe. So again, as soon as the Latter-day Saints understand this, that the second coming is a catastrophe that we're anticipating, it's an advent. The second coming will be a burning of the wicked. The earth is going to change from one state to a new state to allow people to live for thousands of years. How do you expect it to happen without something catastrophically changing or reconfiguring in the way that our planet is floating around in space? And all of this ancient witness is like pushing us to say, you guys are the blind ones. We're like the Jews. The Jews were waiting for a man with a star to come and destroy Rome, because that's what happened in Moses' day. There was planets that came and took Israel out of the Egyptians, right? It was cosmic. So when a man shows up and is like, I'm Jehovah, I'm that cosmic God, I'm the one who runs the planets, I'm the Lord of the hosts, and the hosts are the planets, they host the children of God, right? I'm the Lord of the hosts. And they're like, no, the Lord of the hosts is a planet. And they mocked him and laughed at him. Think about Paul's sermon on Mars Hill to the Romans. They worshiped Mars. So did the Greeks. Ares, Mars, and Venus, like, this was their whole mythology and creation stories are based on these two planets and how they changed the shape of the earth and the world. So it's like, this is why when Paul goes to the Mars Hill and is like, you don't know who you worship. You don't know the God. You say some mysterious God or some planet, and you build these temples to the planets when it's a man. It's been a man the whole time. Why was Israel so persuaded by Moloch and all these false gods of their counterparts? Because it was planetary worship, and they saw the planets. They were aware that there were planets involved of the Exodus and in God's doings. So it's like, when we put them in context, they're not so dumb and stupid as we often like to portray the ancient Israelites when we read the Old Testament. In fact, we are just as ignorant and dumb to these cosmic things that was their downfall because we don't know about it. And so we don't understand a huge grip of the scriptures that are describing catastrophic events, and we just dismiss it as like, oh, it's spiritual. They're talking about spiritual, metaphysical stuff. All right. Sorry, that was a long
back to the lyrics. Back to the lyrics.
Yeah. So up to Ra I went to find. So he sees Mars up there on the hill, and he wants to go to find out what's going on. Because as an Egyptian-trained king, essentially prince, he would have understood these cosmic things, and that when Mars descends down, there's catastrophe, and watch out. That's why Pharaoh wasn't compelled by a lot of Moses' tricks and signs, is because they knew it was catastrophe. So it says, the source of light, the burning fire, a rod made holy. So this is, again, a reference to his rod that he was given there, that his rod would be a symbol of his liberation and the deliverance of Israel. But this rod, it also points to the pillar of fire and smoke that was obvious during the catastrophe that led them. This was the rod between that planet or the host or the angel above and the prophets below. Now, he says, lightning on the bush, off with the shoes. So here's again where I'm talking about a bush that burns but isn't consumed. This is a plasma phenomenon. You can look this up right now as St. Elmo's fire. And a lot of hikers who go up to high peaks will note that the tops of their hiking poles or tents, there will be a blue static flame that jumps and looks like a person or a hand. There's a static electricity and charge buildup that happens in higher elevations, and fire is made, but nothing burns. Like you can stand on the top of your head, these blue flames. It's like one of these plasma balls here. I don't know if you have them, like this plasma on the top of it. This is what would have been on top of the bush. And this manifests at the top of tall mountains, and hikers will attest to that. So like this is a natural thing that a burning bush isn't such a out-of-the-world thing to describe. So he goes up to this burning bush, lightning on the bush, off with the shoes. Why was the first commandment to him to remove his shoes? Because it was an electrical environment. It was to ground himself. Otherwise, he walks up with sandals, he makes a wrong step, he gets clapped. There's a surge of energy from the bush, and whatever was lighting it up from up high, and he's a toast. He's a goner, like Uzziah. So it says, off with the shoes, down, grounded soundly. So there's kind of that whole message in that. Holy ground found around about now surrounds me. So he's in this sacred space and having to remove his shoes. It's like a celestial environment that he's walking into. He's about to be transfigured and speak face to face to the Lord. And so, of course, he's removing his shoes and getting ready to be like surged with electricity. So it says, flowing in the fiery fount of the holy mountain. Again, this is what we are offered when we go through the temple endowment. We're reenacting this very process that Moses goes up the mountain or through the steps, through the elevations, up the ladder to the mountain and house of the Lord. So
we used to take off our shoes. So that I remember the time where we did take off our shoes.
And it's symbolic of this. It's all, everything you do in the temple, from what you wear, what you smell, what you see, it has to do with these catastrophe type things. That's why it's so strange to us who don't, like normally the membership doesn't consider all these things. And so it's just like, oh, well, it's ancient. Yeah, it's great. And those are the only words they can use to describe it. But when you know what these symbols mean, why we have 3 rings on the shoulder, why was there a tassel from the head down? Why are these, like all of this is excluded.
Why are there 9 leaves on the apron? Yeah. Like I thought everybody else was like, knew these things. And when I started asking people, they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, huh? I thought we're supposed to. So like, I'm like you, man. I go to the temple and I'm looking at every little thing. Like there are mysteries here and it's my job to figure it out because it appears that nobody else has taken the time to figure it out. They're just like, going through the motions.
But God is good. Here's what I witnessed to. Anybody who is willing to seek and knock, the door is opened. Like, and totally. Everything I'm sharing you now, there has been no visitation from an angel to deliver this to me. There has been no sacred record that I dug up in my backyard to tell me that this is what's going on. This is all open source information that by the grace of the time period we live in, this information age, I have access to, and you have access to, and all of us do. And so the responsibility now lies on us to be able to synthesize all of the available information to the foundation stone of the temple and the doctrine that God has revealed in the latter days. That's what I'm doing. So it's like, if we would just take Joseph Smith and the prophets seriously and then synthesize everything else to what they're saying in the temple, that's how I'm finding all this. That's how I've discovered all of this. It's not some other way.
Inscribed into one great whole.
Yes. And I write about that ad nauseum. Like that's what the circle and the square represent in terms of like having the spiritual dominate the physical and bringing everything together. So,
okay, keep going.
So holy ground found round about now surrounds me, flowing in the fiery fount of the holy mountain. Change of the countenance, burned of the heart. So there's the transfiguration. Changed of countenance. Everybody who's been described in a transfiguration event, they are described as turning clear or amber-like. Like their blood is removed and light is put in place, is essentially what happens. And so here he is, flowing in the fiery fount of the holy mountain. Iron in the fire, like an amber, I'm illuminated higher in the spire with a calling while I'm caught up, called him Israel. So I like that line, but how it flows in the song, it's much more put together. But it says, iron in the fire like an amber, I'm illuminated higher in the spire with the calling while I'm caught up, called him Israel. So Moses getting his own calling in this transfiguration event. And I throw the word spire in there because it rhymes with higher, but all of the spires on our temples and churches represent this pillar of fire that Moses would have been interacting with all through the Exodus and receiving in a revelation through, what the rod was representative of. All of these things line up. And our temple symbolisms today still attest and manifest and witness of these very things. So Israel, come home to me. Time to gather the tribes, let my people know. So we got the chorus again. Now we go into the second verse with Jesus, where he's a stranger to his own kind, as we talked about, to the Jews. His own people reject him. To them I preached, but I felt the Father calling to me. Again, he's got a greater call. Doesn't matter if they accept him or not. He's doing what the Father has asked. Just like Moses felt the call. So in the garden pressed the wine, Gethsemane, in atoning fire alone made holy. So here's his transfiguration event and there were many transfiguration events of Christ up on the mount with Peter, James, and John, but I would call this being the ultimate transfiguration of the atonement, of the plan of salvation, making death, overcoming death, making eternal life a reality. And to me, that's a transfiguration of the plan that we were all expecting and waiting for, and it happened. So again, that's kind of the lyrics and the expression there that I'm trying to get across. The most powerful part of the song is, I believe, this part here, this descant, where I'm saying the names of Christ: Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, and then I sustain it. And all the while, the imagery of him getting hammered and whipped and scourged, and then the blank faces, the mute faces of the people looking on in astonishment. To me, that's probably the climax and most powerful part of the song, where I want these words and names of God to resonate with the listener. So that they do. Wonderful, Counselor, the Prince of Peace. Again, the verse comes in, or the chorus. Then the final verse, we jump forward into our latter days, where you have Joseph Smith being a stranger to his own kind, obviously rejected for describing the first vision and wanting to just get to the truth of all these different churches claiming to have the priesthood and the authority. Which one is actually right? So he heard them preach, but he didn't know which church was for me, he says. So to the grove I went to find the source of light, in the flaming fire a man made holy. So again, the same pattern, the same process, going alone to a sacred place, a sacred space, and being filled with light, being filled with revelation, being transfigured, becoming a new creature, having a new heart given to you. This happens. And then I say, calling Moshiach Joseph Smith. And if you're not familiar with there are Jewish prophecies that there would be a Messiah ben Joseph who comes before the Messiah ben David. And there's a whole lot written and written, and there are great Latter-day Saint videos too that I would just say they've covered. If you want to know more about why I call Joseph Smith a Messiah or a Moshiach, was what that means, then there's reason. There's a legitimate reason for it too. So it's not just me like vanagloriousing Joseph Smith and putting him up on this pedestal. He is a deliverer and an archangel. So it's like, you got to start recognizing him for what he is.
Totally. It's similar to Moses. I mean, Moses was a dispensational head, just like Joseph Smith is a dispensational head.
Yep. And Joseph, so much more important, being the start of the resurrection. Like through him and through the temples in his dispensation will all the other, the tribes, the city of Enoch, the city of Salem and Melchizedek, the lost 10 tribes, all of them will come here to Joseph in the latter days to receive their covenants, to receive this final version from Joseph Smith. So in terms of the work that he has laid down and sealed with his blood and life, in the grand scheme of the gathering of Israel, it is cosmic. It's huge. So to me, again, that's why I'm incorporating all this into my music, because for me, I listen to this and I'm reminded. So I say 1820 on the money on the 6th. Again, this is just a reference to the start of the church, the date it was started. The 1820 is when the first vision happens, but 18 money on the 6th come the general conference, smoke and pillar like burning phosphorus. Again, his description, and I love it in the New Saints book that talks about the first vision. It gives several of the accounts. One of the accounts I love the most from Joseph Smith, I think Parley P. Pratt's the one who expresses it, that Joseph felt that the forest would catch a flame, would catch a fire based on these two figures and what was going on, the pillar of fire that descended before him. And so to him, he was worried the forest would catch on fire, but it didn't. And even describes it like the burning bush of Moses. So to me, that's where this symbolism comes in. That you have smoke and pillar like burning phosphorus. How bright is the light of a burning phosphorus and the smoke and the pillar that it creates? It creates like a light pillar. And so like glass, not a burn, not a part. So like glass in the fire, he's not burning, he's changing, he's transforming, he's not being burnt. Changing of the countenance and the turning of the heart. Iron in the fire like an amber, we're illuminating higher with the calling to inspire fallen Israel. And that's the last refrain before I just into the chorus, I think, for the end.
Love that. It's so helpful to see kind of where your brain is now. I'm going to re-listen to that song, and I'm gonna see it even the way you described it now. It makes a lot more sense to me now. Okay, let's jump to another song. Trevor, did you have another song that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, let's get into maybe not the level of depth, but little bit of some cool beats. Let's do the Follow the Prophet one, because it's so funny to me and it reminds me so much of my childhood growing up. And anybody that grew up in the 80s or 90s, you're just gonna absolutely love this one. So Leiland, kick up the Follow the Prophet one. It's a trap beat.
Yeah. Oh, do you want the one? I have two versions. So I have a cosmic version that is to the original Follow the Prophet song with like kind of disharmony, like it's kind of eerie with how it and it's got the cosmic like catastrophe flair to it. But I also have one that is like it is a rewrite of Follow the Prophets that I did. I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
I don't know which one I'm referring to.
I think it's the first one you described because it's got kind of an off. The one I listened to has got kind of like an offbeat to it.
Yeah, okay. Then it's this one. So I know it's the Trap remix by Jared Ray Gilmore. So this one, I made just the visuals to. So this is not one that I actually made the music to. This was another member. Well, he's an ex-member, but he gave me permission to make the video for it. But again, the visualizations in this is me. Like this is, I vibe so hard with this. This is why this is one of the first videos I think I even put up on YouTube was kind of like a remake of this song. So let me share my screen and we'll just watch it. But yeah, if you didn't know, I do have another Follow the Prophets where I have all the verses actually, like Adam was a prophet and so on and so forth. Through
That's the one, but let's hear this one.
Okay. Is this the one, guys?
This is the one I've heard.
This one's pretty dark. Got some major.
Adam was a prophet, first one that we know. In a place called Eden, he helped things to grow. Adam served the Lord by following his ways. We are his descendants in the latter days. Follow, 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 follow,
I love the visuals.
Yeah. But I'll talk over this just because it's kind of a vibe song. But like, this is exactly like the cosmic stuff I'm talking about. That I'm hinting to catastrophe. Noah's flood was a catastrophe.
Okay, press pause. All right, just for time, because we're bumping up on an hour and 15. I got one that I'm gonna show that I got teed up here. This one hits hard. All right.
Oh, okay.
I like this one. Oh wait.
Gotta unmute it.
I can't hear anything.
You have to share just a tab, Trevor.
So you guys can't hear that?
No.
All right, Leiland, pop yours up.
All right, let me throw it up here.
I love your image. We played that one on our intro, the lady, or what's it called?
The bride.
The bride.
Like we need our sunglasses.
Put this
David.
planet. Yeah.
Father, forgive me. Yo, look who came through. Another Exmo with the fetish that he's chained to. Come gather around and hear the confused sound out of the enemy's mouth. You say that you left it, but yet here you are and you can't leave it alone. You
I love
say
that.
you were hurt, but here you are and having cast the first stone. It's a trap door, it's a fort-like heart, so hard the demon on the inside playing on your body like a marionette, and I can see it clearly. Des that you test, you guessed it. Run around and calling us some racist, sexist. Now you gotta mess with the nest, so you better be ready for the sting for when the Deseret presses. I'm so sick of progressives, Babylon worships, sex obsessives, blind to the eye of the wisdom, alive in the 15 elders of the church of the blessing. Say you, what's purpose to life? Atone for what blood and put down the Bowie knife. You believe it's all chance in the sky to eat, drink, and get married and die. Yo, look who came through, another Exmo with the fetish that he's
You
changed.
stop it there for now, just for time's sake, because It's so good.
I love it.
This one though, I honestly wrote because of a lot of backlash that I got from it online, trying to share my music and share stuff. I got labeled all kinds of things by progressive members who just are out to get anybody who sticks up for the prophets, basically.
Yeah,
and so I made this song with the help, and it's all about ex-Mos being like ex-Mormons and prog-Mos, progressive Mormons, those who are out of the church but decide to stay in, trying to change it from within, kind of thing. Like, I just love those lines there. It's so real, but I think a lot of people find it very offensive. But at the same time, it was like, this was a way for me to outlet a lot of the hate that I was getting from people, to be like, you know what, back at you guys.
This is the song that I heard that I on our text thread, I said, you are the Tom McDonald of the LDS community. I don't know. Do you know Tom McDonald at all?
I do. Yeah. I follow a little bit of him. And yeah, I love Tom McDonald. And I think people who can capitalize on current events like that by making music that's relevant to, what the world is experiencing is great. I just feel my mission is more along the lines of like, I was born a Latter-day Saint, and so my message has to be like saturated
100%.
with the gospel. So it's like, it's hard for me to put myself up into and write music even like a Tom McDonald would about current events, unless I'm putting in some type of prophetic spin in it. And then I don't want it to be just like willy-nilly. So like, I've started to be a bit more careful, I think, with the topics that I do decide to write about and make music about.
So on that note, now you got to drop Mini Men. Let's play a minute of Mini Men. Right,
that's a good one.
It's got a little, current events in there. I love the thumbnail. The thumbnail is one of my least favorite people.
Oh, I gotta remember who it is. See, I don't even get enough views that I don't pop up in my own searches right away. I have to go to my own channel to find my videos. So
Hey,
yeah,
for
help me
all
out.
of you
those
out there
viewers.
that are watching this, go follow Leiland. Let's help him. Let's help his channel out. Let's
There's
help get his message out.
There's his SoundCloud right there. Take a pause. Here's his YouTube. Take a pause, and here's his Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's where I just
your profile
my...
pic is bad.
There it is, Mini Man. There's my
Mini Men. Let's go,
Daddy Bush.
Yeah, this is the names. Oh, these are the Gadians. I made all these visuals too. So.
These lyrics are deep, dude.
Many men they claim to make the mystery their own, and the many men they claim to be the king. And many men they seek to make the city and the throne, and the many men enslave all of the free. And many men they claim to have the priesthood of God, and the many men they tell you what to be.
He slaps her hand.
Many men they claim to be a teacher of the truth, and the many men they claim that they can see. And the city was a building, it was floating, far beneath its wings. What a sign, it's a red light, it's a red sky. There's a storm to cast it down, and the city will fall, and the fall of the city will be great, yeah. Babylon, falling down in pieces. Babylon, your wickedness defeated. Babylon, falling down in pieces. Listen to the spirit that will witness to the truth, that will lead you to the waters running pure. Look unto the Savior on the cross in the tomb, for the power over death and now the strength to endure. Many men they claim to make the mystery their own, and the many men they claim to be the king. Many men they seek to make the city and the throne, and the many men enslave all of the free. Many men they claim to have the priesthood of God, and the many men they tell you what to be. Many men they claim to be a teacher of the truth, and the many men they claim that they can see.
Don't Tyson.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a sign, it's a red light, it's a red sky. There's a storm to cast it down, and the city will fall, and the fall of the city will be great, yeah. Babylon, falling down in pieces. Babylon,
I got a question, Lee.
Yeah, that's pretty much the end of it.
Is there
Bro, that was my favorite one I've heard. I haven't heard that one. That one is so sick.
no good?
How that's not like has 100 million views. The Lord's just waiting. He's just waiting. You keep cranking, you keep putting it out there.
This
But that was
stuff's gonna
sick.
blow up.
So my question that popped up based off of one of your visuals, is there any electric universe theory to the hexagon on, is it Saturn that has the hexagon?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's an electrical principle. Yeah. So one thing that I talk about a lot, that the sun is connected to all the planets, that there are these tethers of plasma that reach out from the sun and connect to each of the planets at their poles. That's what produces our aurora and Australia borealis, like the northern lights and the southern lights. These are these tethers of plasma that are attaching to the earth. They're like tubes. They call them plasma tubes, and like NASA does. This is not me making this up. So there are connecting plasma tubes to all of the planets, and the one that's driving Saturn, for whatever reason, the frequency of the light and everything that's hitting that, it creates a hexagon. And this is something that you can look up called cymatics, where certain frequencies or harmonies or tones, they will actually, like, they can organize material, which again plays into what Joseph Smith taught about light being, which is electromagnet. Light is on the electromagnetic spectrum. So like when we're talking about light, we're talking about electromagnetism. We're talking about this stuff, electricity. Like it's all on the same spectrum that spirit is described as. So like
and the cinematics that you're talking about, it's a lot of those videos people have seen on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, but it's where really good visualization is they get like grains of rice or sand, they'll put them on a speaker, and then they change the frequency and they'll form geometric patterns. It's the wildest thing you've ever seen, just the audio frequency of it alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so
Have you looked at any of Terrence Howard's stuff that he's been coming out with, and do you have any thoughts on what he's talking about?
I do. Terrence Howard and a lot of characters, I would just call them like that. Like there are information characters is what I would call them, that burst on the scene and want to tell you like, this is what it is. And I want to show you with my model and this and that. People would accuse me of doing that with the stuff I put out, to be honest. But I see character information players like that very suspiciously. I think he's tapping on a lot of the right veins in terms of harmonies, frequencies, how, like, I love his periodic table of the elements and how he's made it a 3-dimensional spiral. That fits with plasma and electromagnetic, like, physics and cosmology that I study. So, like, a lot of that stuff's very interesting to me, but there are obvious, like, red flags and tells that people who don't study, like, the actual foundational literature behind this stuff, they fall into traps of, I mean, just the most obvious one would be like ancient aliens type of scenarios to explain certain things. Like, there's just a lot of bad information mixed in with good information. And so for me, the whole deal, like, how do I find out what's good or not? You've got to have a good filter, a good mechanism for sifting information and synthesizing it. That's what my Cosmism Manifesto is. It's saying you've got to have present in your mind the principles of cosmology that Joseph Smith restored before you go accepting what other people are saying might track onto reality. So if what they're saying maps onto what Joseph Smith has kind of laid the foundation for, I'm more willing to take them. Yeah,
gotcha.
It attracts me. So like
That's kind of your filter.
Yes, Joseph Smith and the cosmology is my filter for that kind of stuff. So like,
gotcha.
I would caution, like, he doesn't have all the secrets like he claims. I'm sure that there are lots of things that he does have that is being ignored. But here's the problem. This is not a new thing that, like, to find out that electromagnetism and plasma is king. They've known this. Like, the people in power know this. But it doesn't behoove them to switch to this type of paradigm while they have all of their control systems set in stone for taxing the people and extracting money for energy in the old wired systems that they have now. So it's like there's no benefit to upsetting it. It's called what is it? It's like disruptive technologies is what these are. Is what we're talking about. And so
totally,
it doesn't matter how true they are, how right this Howard Terrence guy might be, or how co-opted his message might be by the CIA or other nefarious organizations. Like that happens even with the Thunderbolts group that I like to follow that does electric universe stuff. There's some CIA, like, obvious intelligence subversion that I see playing out, like, in real time.
Thunderbolts of the Gods. That was the book, right?
Yeah,
Thunderbolts of the Gods.
Wal Thornhill and some of those other scientists. They're comparative mythologists that have looked at history, looking back at the past with this electrical view of catastrophe, that the planets were once close together and have moved somehow. Like, there was something that happened that moved the planets into their current and present orbits. That was strange.
And
so,
to
like,
give a lot of people a teaser into when we do the electric universe, it goes in to explain the ginormous size of the animals and the plants and the
Oh
bugs.
yeah,
We've all
absolutely.
tried to wrap our brain around that. Like, how is it possible? I mean, I've never
Those
seen
thing was
boxes of
massive.
frogs. They're like the size of cars, you know, and all of that ties into this model, and the length of time that, you know, the ancients lived, you know, all of it ties into this.
We're electrical beings. We're like your body functions on electricity, on the sun. It's dependent on the sun. And so when the position of the earth changes in its electrical environment, so do the hosts. So do the people that are hosted on it. You get what I'm saying? So like when the earth changes position around the sun, the whole state of the earth, the atmosphere, the land, it changes. And so that's how I see the millennium being brought about. That how are we going to live for thousands of years? How will people not die, or how will these things happen? The planets are going to return to a close congregation.
Yep.
That's what's being described in all the prophecy, with the stars falling to the earth or the heaven, or it'll look like the earth is moving. This is the reconfiguration of our solar system, where I believe Saturn will once again be the star that's kind of shining above the light. But that would be like a true restoration of what anciently was described. Because anciently they described this, the first sun, the black sun they called it, was Saturn. That there was a first sun before this current sun that we see go east to west. And the first sun. Yes. And it's in all the popular music and symbolism, all of the esoteric secret combinations and things. It's part of their like hidden mystery doctrines. The first sun. So again, I'm saying like we have at our fingertips as members of the church with the temple, we have access to truth. Yet we want somebody else to tell us it's okay. We want somebody else to tell us that it's all right. When we don't need that, when we have the cornerstone from Joseph Smith, we just need to be responsible in synthesizing what is coming from the world so that it sets on top of the temple like he has kind of put out for us. So that's what I try to do.
So to recap, the last song we just played, walk me through real quick in a couple of minutes what the inspiration was or what your thoughts were for Many Men.
Yeah, so this whole song is about, obviously, again, I brought it up earlier in the podcast, a dispensation of deceit that parallels our dispensation of the fullness of times. So we have truth on the earth and the priesthood on the earth through the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Well, you have doctrines of the devil that are attempting a millennium of their own, okay? So I would say that Satan and all of his occultists, the Kabbalists, all the people that are looking to do world domination, they're trying to set up their own golden age. That's what a millennium would be. They're hearkening back to what was described by the ancients as a golden age under Saturn, and they're trying to recreate a kingdom and a king and a kingship, like a city, a Zion, essentially, that's Antichrist. That's what we're facing. And so all of these doctrines of the devil, essentially, I call them the mini-men. They're all the prophets of the devil that are out there promulgating false ideas mingled with scripture. And that's what I see. All of these people I flash up on the images, they claim to have the priesthood, but they don't. They claim to have all the answers. They don't. They claim to have the mystery of Christ, but they don't, like these occult guys and their secret societies. So that's why I have images of, the Bushes, the Obamas, all the corrupt presidents,
and televangelists too.
Televangelists, I have them all.
Do you feel like we are at a point where they're starting to be exposed, these
100%.
mini men?
Yep. This is why I felt such a lot of my music, actually, if you look back at them, it's with a target at Babylon, Mystery Babylon. I call these guys Mystery Babylon. That's why they're trying to make the mystery their own. When the mystery is Jesus Christ, it's the revelation of the plan of salvation, like that he comes and the millennium happens and we are resurrected and have a final judgment. They want an opposite of that. They want to be the judge and jury and also the elites during a millennium of their own making that profits off of an underclass. And so this is what communism is, essentially, is their doctrine to subvert nations through a slow creep. The Fabian Society is the one that's actuating this plan right now. And their logo initially in the 1800s was a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that their whole idea was to subvert religious, educational, academic institutions with a slow socialist communist creep so they could ultimately have a society that controls the whole world. This is not me. Like, you can find all of this on your own. Everybody can. If we would take Ezra Taft Benson at his word and actually read the books that he recommends and then follow the threads back in history to the Restoration, if we would assume that prophets are actually prophets and not assume that we know better than them and they were men out of touch for their time and stuck in a Cold War, when maybe in fact the prophet wasn't looking at a Cold War but an eternal war, and that you're the one that's looking at a Cold War. Sorry, I get heated about this because I take so much flack just for supporting the prophets and saying, I was born during Ezra Taft Benson's tenure as a prophet. Like, he's my prophet. Like, so I have a intense connection to Ezra Taft Benson and the things that he pointed to. And I see, even in my own family, people who don't take him seriously or the threats that he fingered and pointed out, simply because they want to ascribe to this dispensation of deceit, these doctrines of the devil, of niceness, of social justice and whatnot. This is the very vehicle that they have used to destroy the family, to destroy all the stuff that makes us great. And so this is the deception. So for me, if you're talking about like, how are these guys being exposed? They're being exposed right now. I think there's a great awakening happening among all Christians all across the world, not just in America, that are seeing that, hey, guess what? We've got a deep state. We've got a secret combination that's embedded, that's trying to take global control.
Suburban niceness.
Yes. And so what does Doctrine and Covenants 1 say? Doctrine and Covenants section 1, it goes on this huge warning to the world, to all nations, to the Latter-day Saints, that these wicked men, they are plotting our destruction, and that their sins will be shouted from the rooftop, right? That this is something that will be exposed. And so
Isaiah talks about this. Isaiah prophesies about this.
And the Book of Mormon, why is the secret combination such a prominent topic? Because it's for us.
Over and over.
Jaredites, the Nephites, the Gentiles, us, we all fall prey to this same mechanism of Satan, of building up a false Zion, a false kingdom. That's in fact what Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, the image of Daniel's vision, that was a false Zion, because Israel had failed to achieve a Zion state like Melchizedek, like Enoch before. And so you have us all of a sudden becoming subverted to these worldly kingdoms from Daniel's day, 600 BC, the scattering of Israel, until the final gathering. So it's been a 2,600-year experiment, essentially, of Zion failing over and over again until we're promised to finally make it like Enoch, like Melchizedek, like these people.
Let's go.
All the other nations of the world and their kings are caught up in this false deception of Satan, to think that they're going to set this millennium up without Christ. So that's the inspiration for that Many Men song.
Love it.
I like there's a visualization in there too, where it's talking about, and the building was floating, or I can't remember the exact words, but the where I'm talking about the building that's floating. That's the deception. But I like how Lehi is looking across Jerusalem in the video here. He's looking across Jerusalem, and the Dome of the Rock, or the temple, is what turns into this floating building. Like, I do that intentionally with the visualization, because that's how I see it. It's a false temple philosophy. To accept the worldly versions of cosmology and earth history and all these things is to reject the temple. It's to jump into the spacious building instead of going to the tree of life, where you might get laughed at. You might get the finger pointed at by all these smart people, the Neil Tyson deGrasses, the Carl Sagans of the world, these people who think they know everything, but they are so arrogantly out of touch with what prophets have said is reality. So it's like, why can't I be a Latter-day Saint who is voraciously passionate about leaning all into Joseph Smith and what he taught, and seeing that, oh my gosh, in fact, when you take this paradigm, everything makes sense. And I don't have to lean on ancient aliens or a deception of a CIA type here, a more modern version of this bait and switch that Babylon is always doing with the seekers. So I'm trying to be a sword of defense against that kind of deception.
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been way different than I thought this podcast would go. I thought we were going to talk just about rap, and instead we're talking about cosmology, we're talking about the electric universe, we're talking about all sorts of interesting things, and now I understand where you're coming from with your lyrics. Now, Leiland, if people want to find you and download your music and listen to your music, are you on Apple Music or just on SoundCloud?
Just on SoundCloud, because I have such a volume of music that to host them anywhere else, it would cost me way more than it's worth and that I can afford to even present it. So if you want to support me, you've got to listen to SoundCloud. On SoundCloud, that's where you'll get all of my music. You might have to listen to a few ads unless you pay for the adless version. I don't make any money off of it, so it's not like I'm trying to shill here. I just want people to hear these lyrics because, like you said, I'm more passionate about the message I'm trying to convey than in the way I'm trying to do it. The way I'm trying to do it is loud, and it's obviously different, and that's the whole point, is like I'm trying to get people's attention, but also I know that it's subversively effective. Like, how many people do you know today that know and jump and know the lyrics to bad rap music, but that aren't necessarily synthesizing the meaning of it? Because if they were, they wouldn't be so proud to sing the lyrics. They wouldn't be so proud to be a huge fan of that song. And so to me, I want to shake awake the members of the church to say, like, you've got to be more careful with what you're putting into your mind.
Totally. I love that. I think it's really important. Just so you know, my own catalog of music, I read the lyrics before I listen to any song, because I am acutely aware of the power of words and how they can impact us. And that's why I think I'm drawn to your stuff, more drawn so now that I know where you're coming from. I'm looking forward to doing a whole series on the essays that you have out there. I had no idea that you had this. But we hope that through our channel and through showcasing you, people will find you, support you, and help you with your mission, which I do feel like you have a specific mission to do. And that's why you are so passionate about where you're at. And we want to be here to be able to support you in that journey. So in wrapping it up, Trevor, David, do you guys have any final thoughts? Okay. Leland, thank you again.
I feel like we found a gem.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's schedule another time to get into some of these other topics. The electric universe is something that I'm totally interested in. And it sounds like I can really use you as somebody that can help me understand it. So I'm looking forward to that. For myself, I'm Shane Baldwin. For Trevor Keys, David the Lion Douglas, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Key David podcast. If you like this episode, make sure you like it and subscribe and share it. And hey, go support our friend Leiland Tanner here in his mission. We'll see you guys all next time.
Follow the prophet, follow the prophet.
In the heart of Zion, where the truth shines bright, we gather the stories, bring the shadows to light. From the ancient prophets to the visions anew, we're here to explore, to learn, to renew. Zion Media, where the journey begins, unlocking the mysteries, where the spirit wins. From the mountains of Mentina to the city of light, we're guiding the seekers through the darkest night. With the words of the prophets echoing in our soul, we dive into the scriptures, seeking to make us whole. From the plains of America to the temples on high, we uncover the secrets as the eagles fly by. Zion Media, where the journey begins, unlocking the mysteries, where the spirit